Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and we are here early on in January of the new year. And if there's one thing that I know is going to be part of your 2024 journey, it's going to be marketing. And today we are joined by an awesome guest with regards to marketing. His name is Jonathan Sellers. He is the CEO of Solucru, a leading digital marketing solutions provider. Armed with expertise in SEO, web development, and strategic planning, Jonathan focuses on delivering tailored marketing solutions to franchise brands, multi-location businesses, local service-based businesses, and technology companies. His strategic leadership, customer-centric approach, and innovative vision continue to fuel Solucru's ascent in the digital marketing landscape. I think he's got a really interesting perspective, one that we don't often hear in marketing because he's worked with big franchise brands, he's expanding into smaller businesses. There's so many considerations, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview today with Jonathan Sellers. All right, Jonathan, I am so excited that you're here. Welcome to the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. I'm excited.
Heck yeah, I do love talking about marketing, and I know that you've got so many interesting perspectives on it. But before we get there, give listeners a glimpse beyond the bio. What led to you doing all these awesome things that you do today?
Basically, like I've been in this space for my entire career, one way or another. I started off after graduating from college as a sales in a healthcare consulting firm. From there, I shifted into social media marketing. So this is back, kind of when social media marketing was becoming a thing. So it's, maybe 15 years ago or more. And so then from there, I started, getting into Google a bit with learning SEO, learning Google Ads, how Google Analytics works, and started picking up some freelance clients, maybe 10, 12 years ago, focused on that area. And really ever since then, I've been in this space. And maybe 8-10 years ago, I met some of my most important contacts, even to this day, who worked in the franchising space, and so started working on a few projects with them, with some of the brands they were working with, and long story short, just have been following this path ever since.
Yeah, I love that overview, especially because clearly you and I both love marketing. And a lot of people will probably think of marketing, what is SEO? What is, Google Ads? What is Facebook ads? What are all these different avenues? But I love, because before we even started talking here today, we always ask our guests, what is your zone of genius? And Jonathan, I love that you view marketing as problem solving, because it's really about getting a business. A business is nothing without customers, and marketing bridges that gap. Talk to us about your approach to marketing, because there's so many different ways to do it wrong. There's so many ways to do it right. What's marketing actually mean to you?
Yeah, so for us, related to the problem solving concept, yes, at the end result is customers or leads or whatever it is that our client is looking for. But we've found over the years that there were some bigger picture problems that consistently came up, and those typically revolve around like attribution or efficiency, like where does the data go, where does the information for customers go, efficiency around communication with clients or customers. And so over the years, that has really turned into like a core of how we do business and how we work with clients. And so there's things that we do with every new client that we engage with as part of our setup process, which is building out this attribution system. Because we want them to truly be able to understand exactly, how what we're doing is impacting their business, but just in general, how they're marketing, which pieces and puzzle pieces, I guess, from their marketing mix are actually driving the results, and how all of those are working together. That's really kind of the core foundation for us when we just start any project is understanding like where they are now, like what are they doing and how are they assessing the effectiveness, and then making sure that we put in all the pieces to connect all those items together and give them the true answer to what's working.
Yeah, I think it's really important to paint that landscape because, Jonathan, what your answer just revealed to us is marketing exists for a purpose. It is not something that keeps us busy as business owners. It's not something that's fun to fire up Canva and start creating social media graphics. It exists for a purpose. And with that in mind, a lot of listeners today, obviously I tease that your experience also involves franchise brands that you've worked with. A lot of listeners might be thinking, well, Jonathan, marketing must be easy for a franchise brand. If I'm a Subway, if I'm a Chipotle, if I'm a shout out Chick-fil-A. If I'm a Chick-fil-A, it must be easy to market because I already have all these brand assets from corporate or from some higher office. But I know that that's not necessarily the reality. What are some of those things from your perspective that makes franchising marketing differently? What are some of those things that we can steal? And what are some of the gaps that you see obviously filling that gap for a lot of franchise brands?
Yeah, so I think one thing in general about franchising to address first is there's over 7,000 franchise concepts in the U.S. Looking at other countries like the U.K. has about 1,200, 1,400 active franchises, and so on and so forth. So when you think about those that you mentioned, yeah, those are on another level, right? They have huge, thousands of locations, huge marketing teams. Lots of resources going and national advertising campaigns with traditional media and everything else. But there's a lot of franchises that are smaller concepts, service-based businesses, which we work with a lot of service-based businesses, service-based franchises. So maybe in commercial cleaning or restoration or lab services, things like that. And so those businesses do not have that that huge marketing budget that you see with some of the bigger food concepts or things like that. So what we see overall within franchising is there's a lot of the same challenges that an individual small business will have with marketing their business. And it could be even a bit more complicated because you have to work within the system, because a big part of franchising is following the system and keep making sure that the brand, the value of the brand is retained across the whole network. So as a franchisee, you don't necessarily want to go do something off the cuff that could have a negative impact, and it could hurt the brand and some of your fellow other franchisees. But at the same time, the brand is trying to give the franchisees tools, like you mentioned, some of the creative assets that you can use to market your brand. Some of the strategies and tactics, typically, like they'll work with companies like us. And then they also will typically have some form of a marketing department. And so then, it's all working together to then give the franchisees what they need to be able to succeed.
Yeah, I like hearing that perspective because it's easy for us as kind of the small guys to look at franchises and be like, marketing must be easy for them. But actually, you're painting a clear picture of there are complexities. There are added considerations to it. And the fun thing is, I think, fitting that into a marketing plan, a marketing strategy, which I think that most businesses, big or small, that's the hard stuff to get right. Jonathan, looking at that landscape, what is your approach when you're starting from zero? Not necessarily zero from a business perspective, but zero from a marketing perspective. Where does your mind go? How do you even start to formulate a marketing plan and strategy?
Yeah, so there's some bigger concepts that we always want to address within the planning stage. And so that's thinking about time frames, right? So you have your long term, and that's you're building your brand, or if you're talking about a single business or a single location, so that's building your presence and thinking for longevity and building the business for the future. Then you think of your short term, and that is, how am I going to get customers today? And so it's the same thing whether it's a 200 locations or one business, right? You have to think about both of those things. And then you think about the tactics that affect those, right? So you think about your content, your branding, your messaging, potentially your website, potentially things like that. And that's your long-term focus items, right? So you want to make sure that you have a solid brand, you're communicating who you are and what you do and why people should do business with you. Things like SEO. So you want to be making sure that from your website perspective, you're doing things to help Google or Bing identify your website when people are searching for whatever it is that you do. And then on the short-term side of things, you have ads. You have, if as a local business, that could be digital ads. It could be things like, direct mail pieces, advertising in local media, TV or radio. So just depends on exactly what your business is, and where your customers are going to be. And so we also look at it from a couple of other ways, right? So there's the short term, long term, and then there's the awareness, and then there's the intent. And so you start looking at, for awareness, it is that branding. It's maybe things like Facebook ads or Instagram or advertising videos on YouTube, which would be primary purpose of getting your business in front of people and building awareness. And then there's the intent side, and that's where you're capturing people who are looking for your business now. And so that, in a simple term, that's like if somebody searches on Google or Bing for whatever it is that you do as a business or you offer, you want to show up, right? Because they're looking for it right now. So you're capturing intent. So that's the framework that we work in. We want to make sure that we're putting pieces in place to address all of those, parts of the buying cycle or business growth cycle.
Yeah, I like how I'm a visual person. So when you talk about it as different pieces of the puzzle, the marketing puzzle, I really like that. And especially when you divide it into those two of first building awareness and then also capturing the people who have that purchase intent. If I'm a pizza place and I want someone, when they search for Google pizza places in Tampa, Florida, they have the intent. They're not just Googling it to find some information. They're Googling it because they want some pizza. And so I think it's really important for that. Bring that down to the small business level. Because Jonathan, I think you have such a unique vantage point. Not only are you one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur, just like everyone who's tuning in here today, but you're someone who's worked with big businesses and small businesses alike. What are some of those considerations that small businesses, they may think that these things are complicated, like retargeting, for example, but they're actually super achievable for someone listening being like, Jonathan, I can't have both awareness and intent-based marketing. Walk us through the things that we can actually take advantage of as small business owners.
Yeah, so I would say, I'll give a percentage of budget, right? So if as a business right now you're spending $1,000 a month, I'll just throw a figure out. And for some businesses that's a lot, and for some that's not a lot, right? It just depends on your business. But if you're spending $1,000 per month, what we would typically say is to take 25% of that and spend it on awareness. Take 75% and spend it on capturing intent, getting business now. The thing that, and I had a conversation with someone, an individual franchisee yesterday, and I think this is the type of thing where some people have a hard time thinking about that for a year, right? So if you were going to spend $12,000, $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, and to think about spending $3,000 on awareness. And so knowing that is an investment in your business, it's not an immediate turnover necessarily, in the fact that awareness campaigns will typically not bring you customers, especially if you're a service-based business. It won't necessarily bring you customers in the same way that like a Google Ads would, because the person is searching for your service now. But if you keep in mind that over the year, the number of people that will learn about your business and see your business, that, depending on where you live, thousands and tens of thousands of people who become aware of your business name, who don't need what you do today, but over the course of the year, they may eventually need you, right? And so now, will you be the person that comes to mind? That's the type of mentality that I think it's tough for a lot of small business owners to think about that, because a lot of people are like, I want to put in $1 and get $2 back. The difference is, if you put in $1 and get $1.50 back, but you're taking that other, that the rest of that money, that other 25 cents, then over the course of the year, just because of building that consistently and consistently being there, you could be getting back $3, right, for every $1 the next year. And to Brian, your question about the setting up things like retargeting, it is there's some intricacies that go into it, but it is attainable, right? If you can, there's a lot of resources out there. There's, things on YouTube that can walk you step by step through this. There's courses out there like Udemy and things like that, course platforms that will teach you explicitly how to build these campaigns. So if you could either look at an investment in your time to go learn those skills, or invest in, paying somebody to set it up for you who has experience doing it. But, I think I always go to that. It's things we talk about with our clients over and over and over, just hammering the awareness piece, because it is a piece that necessarily, it's not necessarily the thing you see an immediate return on, but we see it over and over. If brands stop it, right, they're like, hey, we've looked at the numbers and we feel that this side of things is not as, we're not seeing the immediate return after 3 months or whatever, 6 months or whatever. And then they stop it. We typically will see that their results overall decline in the period after that, because people do a lot of research these days. So people may see that Facebook ad, and then they go search you on Google. And so you think they came just from Google, right? So they were just looking for whatever it is you offer, and they searched and found you. But all of these things play together, even the direct mail and things like that, right? They've seen you, seen your direct mailer, and instead of calling, maybe they went and searched on Google. So, we just always emphasize, at least take a percentage of your budget and just dedicate it to awareness, and just forget about it. Don't forget about, test it and make sure that you have good creatives and things like that. But just as far as the money goes, just forget about it. And it's just going to happen, and it will pay dividends over time, as long as you have a good messaging and good strategy.
Yeah, Jonathan, I'll tell you what, that actually feels like a rare piece of really compounding marketing. Not all marketing is compounding. If I run an ad campaign geared towards getting someone to download some sort of free ebook, it's going to work for that finite amount of time, and it is what it is. And then I can nurture those leads afterwards, but I won't be generating fresh leads if I'm not driving traffic there. But I love the importance that you place on these awareness campaigns. I think it's something that's so often overlooked. And listeners, this is why we're bringing Jonathan on here in the beginning of January, is because this should be an essential part of your marketing mix. And with that in mind, Jonathan, I also like how obviously you place an important onus on attribution tracking, because buyers' journeys are not necessarily linear, which is why I think it is so important. And I love the fact that you're an agency owner. I'm biased myself as someone who previously owned a marketing agency a decade ago. I think that the fact that you focus on the marketing mix, you also help people with web design and development. You know the importance of a website. How does the website factor into this? Because I always hear differing opinions about having a conversion-based website, having a website that enhances awareness and really sheds a lot of light on the information that customers are looking for. What does a successful business website look like to you?
Yeah, so I think it depends a bit on what your business is, but if we just stick in the service space, I think the user experience is the most important thing, just in short. So I think it really comes down to when you send somebody to the website, or somebody finds your website, whether that's from an online ad, or whether that's because you have a billboard, or you've gone to a networking event, or however the person comes to your site. I think the most important thing is when they get there, they can figure out who you are, what you do, and they can figure out how to contact you. Now, from beyond that, obviously content is important. If you want to rank on Google, just organically rank on Google, content is the most important thing. So, there's a lot of other components that go into that side of it. But I think at the end of the day, even what Google wants, right? Now, the way things have been changing with Google, as long as you're clear, you're providing valuable information, people can navigate your website easily and then you got to think about, can they do that on their mobile phone as well as on the computer? You're going to be set up in a good position. Ranking for Google is going to, depend on competition in your market, and there's so many things that go into that side of it. So without going into all that in great detail, we just focus on user experience, right? That's the number one thing. Can we present the information in a simple way where people understand what it is that they're going to get from you, and then they understand how to do business with you? And from there, some of those other things about the content and things like that, you can then assess and say, okay, can we add in more information? Can we, build these other pages, and we link to other pages where people can get these in-depth answers? Sometimes that's important. Sometimes it's not as important because people just want, whenever they're looking for what you do, they want to just get it now. And then I think on the attribution side of it, I think that it then becomes, so you really understand what you're doing. I'll give an example of what we do with all of our clients. So we set up a few types of attribution tracking technology. So one of them is call tracking technology. So what that means is whenever somebody calls your business, whether they've called you from an ad or they've just come to your website through some other method, and they call you, the technology identifies where they came from. So if they did come from a search ad on Google, for instance, you're going to know that this person, so this individual, called you because they saw this Google ad, and that information will be stored in your system. So we would typically also send it to your CRM, and we have another tool that we use. We just call it a lead tracker document. It's just a spreadsheet, and so we pull all the lead or customer data into the spreadsheet with the source data attached to it. So then another thing we do is web form attribution technology, which essentially does the same thing, right? So if the person came from a Facebook ad, it will say, okay, Tom Smith, the rest of their details, and then they came from Facebook ad, and this was the ad that they saw. So it could have been a video, whatever it was, or a Google ad. This was the keyword that they searched. And that then goes to the CRM, goes to the lead tracker. And then a couple other things that we do, with AI and all the bots that are out there these days, there's so much wasted budget when you think of digital ads. And so a lot of it is bot clicks. It could be your competitor literally just going and trying to waste your budget and clicking your ads. So your budget's gone for the day, and then they'll get the clicks. There's a lot of, things like that go on. But we use click fraud prevention technology that we install in our clients' websites and ad accounts, which then identifies bots or identifies like people doing weird stuff like clicking your ads over and over, and it'll block those clicks, right? So it says that typically will save like anywhere between 10 to 30% of our clients' ad budget is currently, before we install the technology, being wasted, right? So that's one of the things. And then we just build a dashboard to show all this information in one place. So having that type of setup makes your digital ads much more efficient. It's connected to your website. It's connected to your ad accounts. It pushes the data into your CRM if you're using a CRM, right? And so having that website that lets people easily understand who you are and what you do, what's involved with working with you, and how do you get in touch, right? And then tracking that. Where did those people come from? That's the core of how we look at the website starting a program, like those things should be in place once. And then if you understand like how those things will be in place and how those things will work, and how do you use that with your sales team, or you as the owner of the business, how do you use these tools? That's going to put you in a good position to then start addressing those strategic things we discussed earlier, around making sure you're thinking long-term, short-term, building awareness, capturing intent.
Yeah, boom. Listeners, you see this? Jonathan is essentially giving us a masterclass in real time right here, because the way that he's talking about this, hopefully you can see he's talking about the structure of a real business. If you're sitting here listening to Jonathan talk about a website and you're going, gosh, my website, I just threw it up in 15 minutes on Squarespace. It doesn't do any of this. This is the difference. This is why Jonathan has such a unique vantage point, having worked with franchise businesses. Obviously, they have systems in place. Obviously, Jonathan is crazy about systems. It's super important to act like a real business, which hopefully for every single one of you here in 2024, that's your goal this year, is to start acting like a business. These are the ingredients of that. And Jonathan, I can't let you go, and I can't have a marketing conversation with you here today without talking about something that you alluded to a few times. You mentioned a CRM. You talk about leads as really the first step of that process, but it is clear in the way that you talk about these things. It is a process. I feel like that's the one thing that so many people get wrong in marketing, is they think marketing is the thing that converts new customers. But really, marketing is that step one to generate those leads. But then we have to nurture those leads. We have to follow up with those leads. We need to communicate with those leads. So I want to squeeze a little bit more brilliance out of you here as we come towards the end of this episode. Talk to us about that importance of those back-end systems, that the lead is the first step. What the heck do we do from there?
Yeah, so that is where, so there's two pieces to that from our side of it. So there's the one part in a lot of our client businesses, there's a sales component, right? So it's maybe a service, right? So a lead comes in, they want a quote, or they want to learn about the service provider, how it works. So there's the human piece of it, where now you're picking up the phone and you're calling that lead, or you're sending that lead an email. And then there's the automation side of it. And so that's typically where we fit in, is the automation side. So what we want to do is we want to make the human side as efficient as possible. And so typically the way we do that is we'll automate the call scheduling process, right? So you can do that with something. So a lot of the CRMs will allow you to send automated emails. We also use Mailchimp on a lot of our clients. And so Mailchimp will allow you to set up, like when somebody submits a form, then it's going to send out an email or a sequence of emails. So it could be like, hey, thanks for contacting us, schedule your call. Here's a way to schedule your call. It can also be information or educational pieces that might be important to send out about why you should choose our business, or how our process works, or why our process is better than a competitor, or something like that, right? So there's that piece. And then there's also something that we find as very important these days, is adding in an SMS or text messaging component to that automated sequence. So many, people are email driven, right? Depending on the industry that they work in, but everybody has their phone in their hand, right? All the time. So when you get a text message, you're going to see it. So you may overlook emails. You may not check emails every few minutes like somebody like myself does, but you will get the text message at a much higher percentage. So we've seen a lot of our clients increase their ability to get back in touch with leads by just adding in an SMS step into the automation. And so how you do that varies, right? So it depends on your tools. Mailchimp in the US has a way that you can set that up through Mailchimp. So we have clients in the UK as well. They don't there, right? So we use another tool that specifically in the UK that will allow us to send the automated text. But it's funny because we watch those closely, and we do see Uh, in both markets, we see high response rates on SMS, right? If people are really interested, we see good response rates on email as well. But you got to think about your customer journey. Like, is it common, for instance, that somebody who becomes a lead for your business is immediately looking at other companies as well? So like when they go to research whatever service you offer or whatever it is that you offer, are they probably also reaching out to 2 or 3 other businesses at the same time? And so you have to maybe do some research on what is the process that how do your competitors respond, right? How do your competitors make it easy to communicate with them? And then you want to be better. And so automation can really help you with a lot of that, especially small businesses who have limited resources.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Jonathan. And you just shared some more insights into why you are so good at this stuff, is because you shared with us another consideration, which is, what's your customer's journey? Are they then hopping back onto Google and looking for another provider? If so, you need to factor that into your follow-up sequence. It's if it's a longer sales process, then obviously having that email automation set up on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis to check in with them, that's the type of stuff that's super important. Whereas if you have an immediate buying cycle, if someone's looking for something right now, strike while the iron's hot. That SMS, what's hotter than someone popping up in our cell phone? So I love those considerations, Jonathan. You've given us so much food for thought. You've really raised the bar of our marketing here to start the new year. So with all that in mind and all the different things that we talked about here today, what's the one takeaway? What's the one thing? If listeners finish this episode and they say, gosh, I've got work to do, what's the one thing that'll get them the most bang for their buck when it comes to fixing or setting up or strategically putting together their marketing mix for this year?
Yeah, so I would say, really dive into the understanding, right? So really from every side of everything we've talked about, understand what you're doing now and what the implications of it are. Like, are you capturing intent? Are you building awareness? Are you communicating clearly? Do you really, really understand exactly where your customers or leads are coming from? And once you can answer those questions, or you can't answer those questions, that's when you can start making real decisions. Until you can answer those questions, and so until you understand what you're doing and how the world interacts with it, or how it affects your brand in the world, and until you can say I really do understand where my customers come from or where my leads come from, essentially you're just guessing, right? So you really go internal, maybe look at what competitors are doing as well, and just make sure that you can answer those questions, and then start building the foundation to answer any of the questions that you find gaps. So if you understand why you're doing what you're doing, and it's logical to you, and you're like, okay, I agree with this. This is going to help my business long term and short term. Then start to say, like, okay, do I really understand where my customers come from? And if not, start digging in and start trying to figure out how can I do that? Like, how can I add solutions to the mix that are going to give me these answers? And from there, once you start to see that, so like in our client trackers, once we start to see the keywords that are bringing their leads to them, and then we know, because we communicate with them about this, we know which of the leads moved forward through their sales process. Then you really have powerful information to be able to say, okay, we've thought this one thing was the right path, but we actually realize now that it was this other thing. This slight tweak was actually what drives people that actually become our customer and actually spend money with us. And then once you have that type of information, now it's a matter of just allocating budget, making tweaks. Maybe that information helps you change your messaging and change the things that you're saying in advertisements, and now people get it. it's like an aha moment. It's an aha moment for you, but it's an aha moment for your potential customers, because now they know who you are and why they should do business with you versus an alternative that's out there. So I would say just go, like as you're starting the year, just really make sure you can answer all these questions. Like if you can't, take some time to understand why. Like, why can't it? And I'll give one last example of the attribution thing. So if you're only using Google Analytics or something similar, or you're just looking at your ad account's results, because of privacy laws and things like that, they can't tell you which individual person searched which keyword and filled out the form at a certain time, right? So you will know big picture that 10 people this month searched a certain keyword and became a lead or a customer, but you won't know which of the 10, right? So say you had 20 customers, you're kind of in a guessing game. Well, we had 20 customers, we know 10 of them searched a keyword, so we got a 50% chance of knowing which of the people are those 10. When you get granular with your attribution, you know that Tom was one of those 10, Susie was one of those 10, but Billy was not, right? And so you will know that Billy came through some other source. That's where you can start making real decisions.
Yeah, Jonathan, gosh, our work is cut out for us. I'm glad that we're having this conversation here in the first month of the new year, because listeners are going to realize that it's this sort of intentionality, it's this sort of strategic planning behind our marketing that's going to lead to tangible growth this year. So I love all of the insights. It really does feel like a marketing masterclass in so many different ways. With all of that said, I know that listeners are going to be keen to check out more of you, your agency, all the awesome work that you're up to. And I'm going to tease, I know that part of your expansion plans here this year are to work with more small and medium-sized businesses, because gosh, can they use your expertise and for sure your support in implementing all these things. So drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah, so I mean, in general, you can check out our website. It's just solucru.com, SOLUCRU.com. And yeah, so you can essentially find everything else from there. But we are bringing on more small business clients. We've been building a few websites. But I think one of the interesting things, we had an aha moment, an epiphany moment over the past few months, last quarter, and essentially realized that we can bring our entire attribution system that I discussed, and essentially drop that into any business. So that is something we actually are making available now to small businesses. It's something we were primarily just working within the franchise space on, but that is something we can do as a essentially, like I said, just dropping it in, and not necessarily having to take over. I know some people manage their own digital marketing, digital ads, and things like that. Some people are already working with agencies, but maybe they're not getting this information in the same way I just described. And so we've developed a way to bring that to every business, right? And doesn't require you to change your agency, doesn't require you to stop doing your ads on your own. But we can essentially do all the implementation, set up everything, make sure it's all tracking correctly, and then just manage the software ongoing. It's multiple software tools that we've hand selected that all work together to give this full picture. And we're bringing that to the masses, I guess.
Yes, I love that. So for all of you listeners who are looking to get your marketing mix right this year, check the show notes wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode. Head on over to Jonathan's business's website, solucru.com. Just check down below in the show notes, pound that link, because what you're hearing is these things are becoming more accessible for businesses of all sizes. These are not things reserved for large businesses anymore, or just for franchises. These are things that you can access. So don't be shy in reaching out to Jonathan. Otherwise, Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing all of this wisdom, all of these insights with us here today on the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a great time.